Welcome to Fueling Your Legacy, hosted by Samuel Knickerbocker. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a new, stronger foundation essential in creating your legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. We are back, and I am excited to get right into this. Today is the book review. I'm actually going to be throwing quite a few things at you just because it was really hard for me to pick one book that has taught me these principles of honesty and integrity at different points in my life. And I believe that honesty and integrity in our lives, it's going to be a progression always. And so choosing one specific book was just really difficult to identify, okay, where did I learn this? The truth is I learned it in increments at different levels and in different aspects of my life. And so that's what I really want to share today, but I need to do it through a few different experiences and through a few different books. The first book that I really started to pick this concept up from was a book. I don't know the actual name of the specific one, but the series is called the Ralph Moody series. And I would strongly suggest every young person to read that. From a moral-based standpoint, it is incredible, teaching somebody how to be independent and grow into adulthood and take on more and more responsibility as you get older. Basically, the story is of a small family out on a ranch, and they were doing just fine, but it got to the point where money was tight, and the 12-year-old little boy, he had to go to work and start working on different ranches, kind of being hired out as a ranch hand to help their families survive, which meant that his money was also purchasing some of the groceries, some of the things that were being bought around the house. Well, one specific time, his mom, when they went into the store, she had bought a block of chocolate. And I don't know if you guys remember having like big old chocolate blocks that you would just use for cooking or whatever. I imagine this is what it was like. And he wanted some chocolate one day, but he felt like I shouldn't really be eating the chocolate because it's a family thing. Yes, my money was partially there to purchase it, but it's really not my right to just go and eat our family's food without at least consensus of the other income earners, right? Well, his desires beat out his inner voice of what he should do. And so he waited till everybody went to bed, and then he snuck out of the house, went down to the cellar, and got the chocolate block out, and brought it over with an axe, was trying to chip off a piece of chocolate so that he could have this chocolate. Now, technically, his money did help purchase it, and so it wasn't necessarily a wrong thing, right? It was technically partially his. However, in their social system, in their family system, the expectation of integrity and ethics would say that he shouldn't have touched it, and he should have at least consulted his family members before he went and ate this chocolate. Well, he didn't. He's out there trying to chop off the chocolate, and then his dad shows up. His dad had woken up, followed him out there, and he gets caught, right? He gets caught in this feeling of he had betrayed himself first. And as an act of betraying himself, of doing something he knew he shouldn't be doing, he then he self-criminalized himself, essentially, right? He knew what he should have been doing, and he chose not to do it. And that act, when his dad caught him, kind of compounded. And so his dad had a chat with him and basically explained to him, look, it's not that you didn't have any right to do this. It was the manner in which you did it, and that you weren't forthcoming. You didn't talk about it. And so why do sometimes we choose not to be completely honest in our lives? Why do we choose to hide things back or keep some information or kind of just like skirt behind and kind of do things without asking, kind of the ask for forgiveness, not permission mentality? And in certain cases, I don't think that that's a bad mentality. If you don't know that it's wrong and you're just acting, don't be scared to act just because you don't know, right? And if something does happen where somebody's offended or something happens in that you broke a rule or a law or something, that's different because you just acted. And then when somebody alerts you and lets you know, hey, that's not how things are supposed to be done, at that point, then you can say sorry, you can ask for forgiveness and move on, and then you don't go do it again. That's different than deliberately breaking a rule or deliberately betraying your conscience. And so that is something that I think is really important for us to think about. So that was the first thing. I probably learned that when I was about 10 or 12, listening to this book, and had this experience where, okay, I can learn to be more honest. I can learn to be more direct and accountable to the things that I'm doing in life. The next time I really learned a lot of honesty, well, I don't know if it was the next time, but the next book that I really want to focus on, that I'm going to focus on a lot today, is actually called Snow Rising. So it's kind of hard to see there, the title there, but it's a book titled Snow Rising. It's by Matt Baldwin. And this book is really interesting. In this situation, it's more an adult type setting, but there's a family, and the husband has been working really long hours trying to get ahead, trying to win for his family, or so he thinks, but really he's been betraying himself the whole time. His relationship with his daughter and his wife are basically falling apart, and he just keeps making excuses of why he needs to keep working harder, why he needs to keep going more and more into his work, because it's becoming uncomfortable at home. They both spouses, they began to resent each other for each doing what they were doing, and there was poor communication, and there wasn't complete honesty of how each other was feeling. They both were kind of walking on eggshells, that if they were to say something or be completely honest, then the other person would react negatively, and that created a situation in which neither felt that they could be honest, that they could have integrity and could share all of that. And as a result, they were drawing farther and farther apart. Now, partially, each of them in the book, it discusses each of them, how each of them had feelings inside themselves that they had self-betrayed themselves. And as a result, they were looking for that gratification on the outside. And I'll get into that here in a second. Ultimately, this man, he's decided that he's going to go on a climbing trip. He likes to go on a climbing trip every so often. And so he's going to be climbing the tallest mountain in Washington. I forget the name of it, but some major mountain like Everest type climb. And to do so, he was going to have a guide, and he was going to be going with a group of people. As he's on this journey, his guide has a reputation of not just being a physical guide up this mountain, but really kind of a spiritual or therapist type guide, where she really likes to get to know the people, identify why they're trying to do this, and see if it's something that is not necessarily because of the mountain or the thrill of it, but really it's looking for a way to satisfy their need to feel a value or to feel like they've accomplished something, because they aren't accomplishing these circumstances in their home or in their life. Then they go other places, and all of that stems from a lack of communication and a lack of honesty and integrity with those around us. And so I just want to share a few of the principles that I learned from this that really helped me. And one of them, the first one, really is, as a leader or as a parent or as a friend, somebody who's trying to influence somebody else for the better, what is absolutely essential, especially with honesty, is being willing to be vulnerable, being willing to share all of who you are and the things that you're concerned about, all of your worries, all of those things, being willing to share that. And as you do that, then you actually can create a stronger bond and actually lead people. And that's a way to stay in integrity with yourself. You're not lying or not sharing information with people. You're willing to be vulnerable in a tactful way, so you're not being rude to other people. But you're also honest. You're also letting people know exactly what you think. You're not holding people back or holding yourself back from fully expressing yourself. And that comes with a lot of vulnerability, because when you start to say out loud what you're thinking, then all of your ideas, all of your thoughts, all of who you are at that time, when you're bearing your soul, all of that is then out there to be attacked. It's out there to be inspected, to see where somebody else's beliefs might line up where they might disagree, and then they can then share that with you if they choose to. And so it's a very vulnerable situation to kind of bare your heart and take all of your feelings and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling right now. I don't know if that's even right or wrong, but this is how I'm feeling. Please help us work through this. And as a leader and as somebody who's trying to help others grow, that's absolutely essential in a situation where you want to help others. And so I see it a lot in my practice here, what I do for work. It's absolutely essential for me to be able to be completely vulnerable, be real with the people that I'm working with, so they can build that trust and build that relationship, so they can feel confident that they can share their deepest, darkest secrets, right? Sometimes people are extremely embarrassed to discuss some of the things that we discuss, because in their mind, they've been condemning themselves for so long. They know that they're living out of integrity with themselves, and then for them to say it out loud and to let somebody else on their little secret that they're out of integrity, that's hard, right? And they're not just going to do that for anybody, especially not for somebody who they feel is better or somebody who they feel is going to judge them. And so expressing yourself and allowing yourself to be vulnerable, being completely honest and integritous with those that you're working with is vital if you're trying to lead and help others grow. And so I'm going to read one little passage here because I think it's so crucial. And that is basically saying, when you look outside yourself for happiness, you begin to crave social validation, realizing that integrity, character, and personal esteem cannot come from within so long as your behavior is in conflict with who you believe you are. So rather than change your behavior or your values, you begin to look for social acceptance. And unfortunately, there's always someone out there who will tell you that your behavior is perfectly acceptable, which leads you further away from the path. Over time, perhaps you believe in who you are, your belief in who you are begins to darken, right? So we inherently know who we are and what we represent. And then as we start to change that, then we're starting to look for a lot of outer validation. The most honest people, the people who have the most integrity that I know of in my life, that I look up to and respect and that I look to as mentors, they really don't care too much about what other people think. They aren't looking for that social validation. They aren't looking for outward validation, because they know inside of themselves, they're confident, they're honest, and they're at integrity with themselves as often as they possibly can. I don't think anybody can always entirely 100% be integrity with themselves, because beliefs change. And as belief changes, then we have to shift. And that shift is becoming more in alignment with integrity, but that's still a shift. It's not always going to be there. And so it's so crucial to think, okay, where right now am I getting my value? Where am I perceiving the value from other people? And if I'm looking for validation from outward areas, from my wife, from my children, from my boss, from my employer, whatever that is, from my clients, whatever the case is, if you're looking for outward validation to basically say to yourself, wow, I'm successful, or I have X, Y, or Z, then when you're in that situation, I would strongly suggest that you take a look inside of yourself and say, okay, the very act of looking for this, I would say, is a good indicator that there's something not in integrity with myself. Where am I not in integrity with myself? Where am I just a little bit off the mark? And where am I not doing what I need to be doing? In this book, they quote Gandhi, and it says, a man can not do right in one department of his life whilst he is occupied in doing wrong in another department. Life is one indivisible whole. And I absolutely believe that. We can't be two-sided, or doing something wrong on one side and then thinking, oh, well, that's fine. It'll just, I can put on this face. I can put on this mask over here in my business, but in my family, I'm a terrible father. I'm a terrible son. I'm an abusive person, right? You can't do that. The way you treat your life in one area of your life, I honestly believe, from a principles-based standpoint, you're going to be treating the same thing the same way in all areas of your life. And that's really difficult to stomach, because that means we have to really examine our lives in all areas all at once and really identify, okay, where do I need to start working on? Maybe it's the little white lies. Maybe somebody texts you and you just didn't know how to respond, or you didn't want to respond right away, or you got busy or whatever. And then when you finally remember that you need to text them back, you say, oh, sorry, I just barely saw this. Yeah, what did you need? But really, you saw it like a day and a half ago. You just didn't know how to respond, and so you just didn't respond. And then you throw in a little white lie to save your face, to make it seem like, hey, I just didn't know how to respond. Or you could just, right when you get it and you don't know how to respond, you could say, hey, let me think about it. I'm not sure how to respond right now. I'll get back to you. You know, you can be honest. You can be integrity. You can have integrity with those around you. And as you do that, you have a lot more confidence. You don't have to worry about what you said 2 months ago or 3 days ago or whatever. You know that it's true inside yourself. This is something that my wife, after we got married, she said this is one of the things that she really liked about the beginning of our relationship and so far in our relationship is that she didn't always like the things that I've said. And I could definitely be more tactful as a person. I'm aware of that. But not very many people that I know think that they're going to get a half-true answer out of me. They're going to get exactly how I feel. Now, whether that's the truth or not, that's subjective, right? The truth to one person, maybe they have more information, maybe they know something that I don't know, whatever, but I'm going to give somebody my opinion, really whether they like it or not. I did learn throughout my life that rather than just giving my opinion, when somebody asks me a question, I learned to just ask them, you know, how truthful do you want me to be? How brutally honest do you want me to be? Do you want me to tell you everything I feel, or do you just want to hear kind of a nice, uplifting statement? You know, what level do you want to know? Because I don't really like secrets, but I have learned that not everybody wants to hear all the information that I have to share. So I've learned to kind of limit what I share, but I always ask the person that's asking me a question, I ask them, hey, can I share this with you? Is this something that you want to hear right now, or would you rather me not share? Because that allows me to let them know, hey, I have more to share. I have more feelings, but I also am respectful of you maybe not want to hear them, or you maybe are not in the situation to hear them right now, or in the right mental state. And that's huge. You got to be able to help the people understand that. I do want to share an experience from my childhood that ended up being really, really a defining moment and helping me understand this on a very personal, intimate level. And that is of my mother. And growing up, we were raised in our certain religion, and we were taught to believe a certain way, and we were taught that these things were true, and that if we did certain things, then we would be able to achieve a perfect family forever, right? Or something to the sort. We'd be able to live together as a family forever. And I still believe that, by the way. So I'm not saying I don't believe that, but there was a point when I was about 13 or 14, that my mom and dad, they called me into the office, and they had, I was going to be moving out with my, down for us the summer with my oldest brother, who knew already, but they called me into the office, and they let me know that mom did not really believe in the teachings of this church that we belong to anymore. And that was really hard for me, because growing up for forever, my mom taught us the definition of integrity. She taught us what integrity meant, and she was teaching us integrity the whole time. But in this moment, as a 14-year-old, my mind was not completely understanding. And in my mind, my mom had lied to me my whole life, right? And that was really hard for me initially to stomach and think, wow, how could somebody be preaching one thing the whole time, but be completely out of integrity with themselves the whole time, right? It was a really, really difficult cognitive dissonance moment for me to comprehend and understand. And I struggled with it bad. Like, it was not an easy thing for me to understand or for me to get over. But what I learned ultimately was that experience, her being willing to come clean about her feelings to everybody, it taught me two things. You know, sometimes we do things that we just don't know. We don't know what we believe, And we don't know how we feel, but we do see some good things in things that we don't necessarily believe, but we see some good practices. And so we're willing to allow ourselves participate. We're willing to even promote certain things that maybe we don't agree completely with, but we do see certain values that are being taught somewhere, and we want others to know that we're associated with those values, and that we want especially in this situation, she wanted us as children to learn certain values that this church taught, and she just didn't know where else to get us to learn them. And so this is the vehicle that she used. It wasn't necessarily that she was out of integrity, but that she was just using this as a vehicle. And it took a while for me to understand that, but that was one thing that I ended up learning and growing, taking away from that, and understanding, okay, I can see how that it was actually a really positive thing, because I love the church that I belong to, and I love what it's done for me, and I love those values. I don't know where I would have got those values without belonging to that church. I'm not saying that they're not anywhere else, but I love those values. I still do love those values. The other thing that it taught me was that sometimes making that jump, when it is finally time to come clean and actually admit or make public that your beliefs your actions have been displaying one thing, but they're contrary to your beliefs. That I don't know how to express how difficult that must be for somebody. I've had to do that with certain areas in my life that just change, right? Over time, you've been living your life one way, and then your opinions change, and it's hard to break out of the mold, break out of the habits of those opinions. And so you just keep doing it, and then eventually it gets to a point where you just can't handle doing this thing a certain way anymore. And so you have to tell somebody that doesn't work. A great example of this is in a relationship. When you're in a relationship with somebody, and maybe you think their laugh is a little bit funny, or they're laughing too loud, or they're screaming, or whatever it is. You don't like the way they wash dishes. You don't like the way they fold your laundry, whatever it is. And it can be simple. Maybe the first 10, 20, 30, first 10 years of your life, you just never say anything, but it's just this little thing that's just bugging you the whole time. But you think, it's not a big deal. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything. Well, then finally you just had it. It's a day when you're stressed, whatever, you just had it. You finally share with this person how you actually feel. And how does that make them feel, right? It makes them feel like you've been lying to them their whole relationship the whole time. Now, is that necessarily accurate? Yeah, it kind of is. But from an integrity standpoint, we have to weigh how difficult is that jump. Maybe in a spout of anger, not the best time to share that, but that's not how my mom shared it with me. She shared it in a very loving way, explaining, hey, these are things that I felt for a long time, and that it was a change in her, and now was the time to let me know that was kind of who she was. And that was so, looking back on it, right? During the moment, it was really difficult for me. But looking back, after I had read these books and learned from these things, I'm so grateful that she was able to do that for me. I'm so grateful that she didn't limit me in any way from experiencing that sometimes you're going to have to come clean about things, or your opinions change, and that can be really difficult, but do it anyways. And that is one of the greatest lessons in my life that I've learned, that there's hard things to say, there's hard things to confess or to tell people, and you need to do it anyways. It's still part of what is right to do it anyways. And maybe circumstances and situations and timing, I think those are key, and each individual needs to identify those for themselves. But the first step to any of that is becoming aware of where you're in integrity with yourself and where you're not in integrity with yourself. And so it comes down to this paradox of, well, I want to be honest with everybody, and so I'm going to do my best to be honest. Stop thinking about other people. Stop thinking about how it's going to show up to other people. Start thinking about yourself. And it's counterintuitive to be selfish first, but I promise you, the only way to be honest with other people is to know who you are. The only way to be honest with other people is to be selfish and identify those things first. And this is another quote from the book Snow Rising, and this is just an incredible, incredible phrase. I love it because it really speaks loudly to our culture right now, our country right now, our society right now, social media. I mean, there's so much stuff that this applies to. But it says, a man at war with the world was at war with himself first. Peace begins on the inside and works out. So if you have situations in your life that you're not being completely honest with other people and you're not in integrity with other people, that's because you've got something going on inside of yourself first. If you're finding fault in other people readily and frequently, that's because you are finding fault in yourself and you're projecting them outwardly. People don't just go to war with people. They go to war with themselves. They're out of integrity with themselves. And as a result of that, then they react negatively towards the world. We all know those people who you cannot say a positive thing around them, because as soon as you say something positive, they're going to think that you're accusing them of something, of accusing them of not being positive, accusing them of not having this great life, whatever it is. And that is purely because they themselves are at war with themselves. And once you recognize that, once you have that understanding, because you've experienced it, not because I just said this on this podcast, but because you've experienced it and you know what it's like to go through that transformation, then you are able not only to have compassion on them and for them, but you're able to share empathy with them, explain and help them through that journey themselves. And I think as we do that, as everybody who's listening to this, we can start with us and grow that following of people who are leaving a legacy of love and helping people. That is going to fuel your legacy, because one of the biggest things that I said this on Monday, one of the biggest things that I want to be remembered for is that people could trust me. And that's going to be a huge legacy of mine, is that people can trust Sam. They knew that if they wanted his opinion, they could go get his opinion. Now I won't say it's the truth. I'll say it's my opinion, because I recognize that I don't always have all the facts, nor am I always as logical. I try to be as objective as possible, though. And that is something that I strive for, but I know that I screw up because I have my own experiences and my own preconceived conceptions of different things. So I know I'm not perfect, but I hope that other people know that when they're coming and asking Sam for advice, they're going to get exactly what I think in that moment. And I'm not going to mince words very often. I try and be more tactful, or as tactful as I can be. But I really don't want to be misunderstood. And I'm over-explanatory. You've kind of probably experienced that just in this episode here. But I really want to help people, and I really want to help people understand that honesty and integrity, they have to start within first. They have to start with identifying what you believe and who you are. And then as you do that, and as you grow into that, then you can go and help other people and lead other people to a more accurate identity of who they can be and who they can become, or who they actually are, and let them fully express who they are. So please remember that if this was helpful, comment. If you disagreed with it and you hated it, that's okay. Still comment. I'd love to hear your opinion. Like I say, I know I'm not always right, but I'd love to create a discussion and gain more understanding for myself, and see how other people are viewing this in their own lives, and maybe hear some experiences of areas where they've applied this or where they haven't applied this, and how that's turned out. If you do, take a screenshot, post it on social media, and tag me in it, then I would love to give you a shout out here on the podcast. I know that Jeff Prowse is very often commenting on my posts on Facebook, and I appreciate that. And a few people have been able to give reviews on iTunes, and that's fantastic. Again, please rank, review, whatever you can do to help get this to more people is so much appreciated. And I hope you guys are going to have a wonderful Wednesday, because there's so much good in the world. And as we become more real with those around us, that just increases. So have a great day. Please like, comment, and share. Thanks for joining us today. If what you heard resonated with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me so I can give you a shout out on the next episode. And thanks to all those who have left a review. It helps spread the message of what it really takes to build a legacy that lasts. Catch you next time on Fueling Your Legacy.